we're on. We thank God for that. We thank God for everything. I'm going to turn the video off. And we're somewhere between the testaments, like I said, in the book of Daniel. And Daniel 11 has a lot of this stuff. And oh yeah, I got Maccabees here. I got Maccabees there. So we might dip into some Maccabees. You know, these are non-canonical books, I guess you would call them, or the Apocrypha or the Pseudepigrapha. And a lot of history is in the books of Maccabees, and that has a lot to do with what Daniel was talking about in Daniel 11. I mean, you know, not just Daniel 11, but he dips into it in Daniel 8 too. But Daniel 11 is like the whole thing is a prophecy of what's going to happen between the testaments. And that's what we're looking at. I got a bunch of books here between the testaments. I got this guy, D.S. Russell, Russell, Between the Testaments. And he's kind of like, he has a lot of good stuff here, history-wise, and having to do with the priesthood and all that stuff. But he personally doesn't believe that Daniel wrote it at the time that we know that he wrote it, and we'll prove that as we go down the road here. That Daniel did write this when we think he wrote it, when he was down there in Babylon, and when the Persians took over, and he wrote it down there. So he was kind of like right before the testamental, the 400 silent years. And so this guy believes that the book of Daniel was written at the time of the Maccabees, you know, and when Antiochus was doing his thing, and the Hasmoneans. So, you know, if it was written then, it wasn't written by Daniel, that's for sure. So that's one thing I got negative about this guy, but he still has some pretty good stuff in here, history-wise, conveying what happened between the testaments. And I skipped through a lot of his stuff. I'm really not going to get too much into it, but he talks about the Jewish apocalypse, including the writer of the book of Daniel. So he's got him much later, much more strongly influenced by this. Their whole outlook is governed by the belief that this present evil age was fast drawing to a close and that the new age would speedily be ushered in. And then he talks about, he says, even more important than Syrian Hellenism was Egyptian Hellenism. And we know that, you know, when we talk about Hellenism, we're talking about the Greek influence, and that came about when Alexander the Great took over and started ruling the world, and he so-called Hellenized the world, and it stayed that way even into the Roman period. They even call it the Greco-Roman period, and the Maccabees were fighting against this Hellenization of Judaism. They didn't like it at all, and we'll spend some time talking about Antiochus when he came into the temple and did what he did. But these, you know, the Egyptian Hellenism took place and shape under the Ptolemies, because we know that Alexander the Great, when he died, his kingdom was split up between the four guys. Ptolemy, Seleucus, Cassander, and Lysimachus. I know Jim always says Lysachamus, but that's okay. It's Lysimachus. He just changes the M into a C and the C into the M. So, and then the old religious and mystical tradition of Egypt and Babylon came into contact with the new Greek science and culture producing a system of thought much more abstract in form than the Syrian branch of the Hellenism. And I'm just zipping through some of the stuff that he wrote here, and you'll see a lot if you got a book, the book of Josephus, the works of Josephus. He covers extensively the between the Testaments, and he talks a lot about Daniel. If you get his book in Antiquities of the Jews, you'll see that in Josephus, and also Philo. Philo, I think it's Philo or Philo. He was around that time too. He died around AD 50, so he was around for a lot of this stuff. And Josephus, he goes back to let me see the dates on Josephus. He's AD 37, but he writes the whole history here. You know, he was born in AD 37, but he talks about a lot of the history of the Jews. And this guy here, let me see, Birth of the Christian Religion. He says the influence of these different types of Hellenism, and like I said, you got Ptolemy Hellenism, you got Antiochus, you got the Seleucid Hellenism, and all that. This whole world was Hellenized during this period, and it's clear that there was a big influence. But in its fundamental tenets, Judaism remained true to the faith of its fathers and prepared the way not only for its own survival, but also for the birth of the Christian religion. And all of this stuff that happened between the years, the so-called 400 silent years, or the intertestamental period, or the between the testaments, as we see, it was all to make room for this Christian religion that was going to start up after Christ's death and resurrection. And I can't go through this whole book. He's got some pretty good history here in this book. It's called Between the Testaments, D.S. Russell, and so I'm not going to go through all of that. And there's another book here by H.A. Ironside. I don't know what the H.A. stands for. And it's called The 400 Silent Years from Malachi to Matthew. So the 400 Silent Years from Malachi to Matthew, it's H.A. Ironside, Ironside. And he's got some good stuff in his book. And you know, when you're reading these books, you got to take what you need and leave the rest, because some people have opinions. He talks about the Jews under the priestly rule. He talks about the days of the Maccabees, which is a big important part. Probably what we're going to cover mostly tonight, if I get into it. And the end of the Hasmonean dynasty. And he talks about that. And there's another book here. I don't have it, but it's he mentions it here. Ironside mentions it. It's called Between the Testaments, and it's by Dr. Grant, Grant. So he got some of his book. This Ironside got some of his 400 Silent Years from Malachi to Matthew from that book, Between the Testaments by Dr. Grant. I haven't looked that up, so maybe I'll put it on my list of books to get. But I got some pretty good stuff between the Testaments here. And he just says in the first chapter, he says the average Bible reader doesn't pay too much attention. You know, they read the book of Malachi, they close the book, and then they open it up again, and there's Matthew. You know, so we don't pay too much of between the Testaments. And the Old Testament closes with the people of the Jews partially restored to their land, but under Persian dominion. This is in the Malachi period. The New Testament opens with the same people greatly multiplied and dwelling in the same country, but under Roman rule. And yet with an Edomite vice king, what's his name, Herod, exercising jurisdiction over part of the land. In many other respects, circumstances have undergone a marked change, and generally for the worse. So, what brought about these changes during the 400 silent years? Malachi, what is it, Malachi 4:6? Let me see what he says here. Malachi, hello, Malachi 4:6. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. Boom. Period. 400 years, and then the book of the generations of Jesus Christ. So, there's a big pause there between the earth with the curse and the book of Matthew. Like I said, the Jewish historian Josephus, he gives a lot, and he talks about the books of the Maccabees too. But Malachi has witnessed that the people may be separated from outside evils and not be separated to the Lord, and that is a constant danger. And he gets into the after the death of Nehemiah, who was the governor, and we know about the book of Ezra and Nehemiah. They enjoyed a large measure of independence under the mild rule of the Persian kings. We know that Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes, they let the people go back to the country and rebuild the city and rebuild the temple. And we talk about the decrees, the 4 decrees, the first degree. I don't have it written down here, but the first degree to go build the temple, the second degree to back that up, and the third degree also to build the temple, and then the fourth decree, which was to build the city. And that's when you see Daniel 9, 24 to 27, he talks about the 70 weeks of Daniel, and that starts there. And they rebuilt the temple in 516. So from 586 to 516, there was 70 years that they had to let the land lie fallow, and they were back and they finished the temple in 516. So there was a mild rule of the Persian kings, and even for a time after that, the Medo-Persian Empire, which is called the Bear, had been defeated and superseded by the 4-headed leopard, which is Greece. And you can read all about that in Daniel 7, or using the simile of Nebuchadnezzar's dream after the silver kingdom had been displaced by the dominion of the brass. So you got the Babylon, Persia, Greek, and Rome. The Babylonian lion, very regal. That's gold, and that's very precious, but a weak metal. And then you got the Persian Mede bear. It's silver. It's less precious than the gold, but it's stronger than the gold. And then you got the leopard, the Greece, Babylon, Persia, Greece, which is the brass. It's much less precious, but it's stronger still than the gold and the silver. And then we got the beast with iron teeth. That's the iron, which is the only thing that's good for is hurting people. It's less precious but stronger. So that's what happens with these Nebuchadnezzar's dream. The metals become less precious but stronger. And let me see. Judah talks about. Then he gets into all of the priests, the high priests, and who were the pseudo high priests. So that's a good one in this book. And I got something here. All right, and then he gets into Antiochus Epiphanes when he invaded Egypt in 171 BC. So we'll run into all of this as we're reading Daniel. But I want to read Daniel and see if we could, if the notes I have in the book help us out with some of the history. And I sent away for this thing that has the history of the Bible coincided with the history of the world. It was a big map, and it was delivered to me, and it's so big that I can't fit it on any wall here that I have. So I had to send it back, and I'm going to get a smaller one that I can put up somewhere. And it's just something else we can look at, to help us see what was happening in the secular world and in this biblical world, because it coincides with they have the history of the world and all around the world: Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, China. What was happening in other parts in the Middle East and stuff coincided with biblical history, and you can see the dates there. So it's fascinating for me. I love stuff like that. I can spend days just looking at things like that. And then there's another good book here by James Vanderkam, Vander, capital Kam, Vanderkam, and it's called From Joshua to Caiaphas. So the last one we hear about in the Old Testament is Joshua, not the Joshua from Moses in those days. And of course, we know Caiaphas is the high priest that was around when Jesus. So, this is something else. It specifically talks about the high priests after the exile. And it's from Joshua to Caiaphas. And it gives you the look of it gives you a history of the 400 years as it pertains to the high priests. So it'll give you the high priests in the Persian period, the high priests in the Babylonian period, the high priests in the Grecian period. And there were some bad ones, and there were some good ones, and some people just set themselves up as high priests, and they weren't really in the lineage of the high priests. And I got something over here, but I'm not going to read that right now. It's talking about Daniel 11:22. It talks about Ananias. There was a couple of good priests there. We'll get into that too. So, like I said, there's a couple of good books there. And of course, McClintock and Strong. When you look at McClintock and Strong, you'll find a lot of good stuff on Daniel. And I haven't looked at anything pertaining to between the Testaments. But if you read Daniel in McClintock and Strong, it breaks down the book and it gives you a synopsis of what's happening with all the verses in that book. And I think I have it over here. So here, if you're looking at this in the book of Daniel in McClintock and Strong, and there's this one page here that it gives you everything pertaining to the harmony of Daniel's prophecies of the four great Oriental kingdoms. So here you got, chapter 2, chapter 7, and chapter 8, and these are lining up here. The ones in chapter 2 line up with this, and you go right across the board here, and you can see this, and this is in the McClintock and Strong. I mean, if you got that, or if you have it online, and it goes up to the last chapter in Daniel, chapter 12, right? Yeah, and then, but chapter 11 we're going to spend some time reading through that, and hopefully we'll get something out of that. So this is all, and you can see how chapter 7 and chapter 8, there's a lot of coinciding stuff with chapter 11. When he talks about, the four empires and the ram and the he-goat and all of that stuff, and that's in there in chapter 11 too. So chapter 11 is like giving you a history of between the Testaments, basically, and that's always fascinated me. So I did a study on it one time, and I had books and papers and charts and graphs and everything, and I can't find it, man. I tore this place up looking. And I know it's in there somewhere, and I'll find it. But what's the sense in having all these notes if I can't go back and say, oh, here it is? I need some kind of a method here to go back and look things up. Nothing's in really alphabetical order. So chapter 11. we'll start here. Also, I. Now, right away, you're saying, who? I. This I is referring to the angel, who is, we presume is Gabriel. All right, he's the messenger. And he, so also I, in the first year of Darius and me, even I stood to confirm and to strengthen him. And we know that's the angel. Gabriel speaking to what he did in verse chapter 9:1. He says, what I did to strengthen him. He says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the seed of the Medes, which was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Okay, so that what he's referring to there. And then he says, and now will I show thee the truth. Speaking to Daniel, behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. And you're talking about Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes. And the 4th shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. And that's Javan, and that would be Alexander the Great. And he says, and the mighty king shall stand up. And this mighty king is Alexander the Great, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others besides those. So we know what that's talking about. It's talking about the 4 kings, and when you see that, when the great leopard with the 4 wings on its back, and so that's Alexander the Great, and his dominion was broken up, and a mighty king shall do his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the 4 winds of heaven, and not to his posterity. So that's talking about Ptolemy, Seleucus, Cassander, and Lysimachus. Ptolemy took Egypt, which would be the kingdom of the south. Seleucus took Syria, which would be the kingdom of the north. So whenever you see the king of the south, it's talking about Egypt. And whenever you see the king of the north, it's talking about Seleucus or Syria. And then the other guys really aren't even mentioned. Cassander, he did Greek and Macedon. And Lysimachus, he was near Thrace. If you look at a map, you can see Thrace up in the northern area. And Greece and Macedon was Cassander. Besides these, I forget what I was up to here. Because the meaning to be plucked up for others besides. And the king of the south shall be strong. That's Egypt. And one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him and have dominion. And his dominion shall be a great dominion. And how long between so this would be I got in the margins here 70 years after Alexander the Great. And in the end of years, verse 6, they shall join themselves together. This would be Syria and Egypt. For the king's daughter of the south shall come to the king of the north. So the king's daughter of the south, I'm trying to get the name here, I think that's Bernice, shall come to the king of the north, and that would be Antiochus II, to make an agreement, but she shall not retain the power of the arm, neither shall he stand, nor his arm, but she shall be given up, and they that brought her, and he that begat her, and he that strengtheneth her in these times. So there was a whole lot of stuff going on here between Bernice marrying into the the Seleucian Empire, and this other guy, Philadelphus, his daughter married somebody else, so they were giving their daughters to each other. So trying to get some peace going on. And then, but out of the branch of her roots, and this is Bernice's roots, shall one stand up in his estate, which shall come with an army, and shall enter into the fortress of the king of the north, and shall deal against them, and shall prevail. So this particular, when I got in the margins, I got a lot of dates in the margin, and these things are happening, and you're talking about maybe 100 years passing between these verses, or 200 years passing between these verses. So like in verse 5, that would be like 323 to 282 BC. And then when you get down here to verse 7, you're talking about 246 to 225 BC. And I got a bunch of names. I'm not going to throw these names at you. This is the benefactor, Euergetes, Ptolemy Euergetes. You got Callinicus. I can't read his name right now. And shall prevail. So, and in verse 8, and shall also carry captives into Egypt, their gods, with their princes and with their precious vessels of silver and gold, and he shall continue more years than the king of the north. So that I have 46 years in the margin, whatever that is. So the king of the south shall come into his kingdom and return into his own land. So you're talking 222 BC to 205 BC here. And I've looked I coincided all these verses with what was happening in the history books, and this is why I wrote these in the margins. 222 BC to 205 BC. That's verse 9, and then in verse 10. But his sons shall be stirred up, and shall assemble a multitude of great forces, and one shall certainly come and overflow and pass through. Then shall he return, and he shall and be stirred up even to his fortress. His fortress would be, I got Gaza there. So this is Ptolemy the fourth and Philopator. So you got Ptolemy is the fourth is the Philopator. I wish I had these notes. I could look at it and just at a glance, but I'm looking in the margin here in my Bible where I had these things written. And then in verse 11, he says, and the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight him, even with the king of the north. And these were going on back and forth for every 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. These guys would fight each other. The Ptolemies really had control of Palestine, and the Seleucus was always trying to, the Syrian Seleucians were always trying to knock them off, but eventually they did. But this in 11, and the king of the south shall be moved with choler, and shall come forth and fight with him, even with the king of the north. So you're going back and forth with Ptolemy and Seleucus. And he shall set forth a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given into his hand. And this would, you can find this also in the Maccabees. This would be 3rd Maccabees, and this is talking about Antiochus III, and the dates on this would be 223 to 187 BC. This verse here, 11, and then this battle here is the battle of I can't read that. It looks like Rapaia, Rapaia. Let me see if I got that here, because I know Ispus was a big battle. This Maccabean revolt. No, that's after that. That's 164. Trying to get this date here. This battle. Let me look this up real quick. Battle of R.A.P. Raphia. I think it's R.A.P. It could be an H. Yeah, it's Battle of Raphia. Here we go. Battle of Raphia. So yeah, 217. There you go. The Battle of Raphia, also known as the Battle of Gaza, was fought on 22 June 217 BC near modern Rapha between the forces of Ptolemy IV Philopator. Ptolemy IV Philopator, yes, and the Philopator the Great and the Seleucid Empire during the Syrian Wars. So all of these things they're going back and forth. So that's a Battle of Raphia in 217. I got that. Okay. And then in 12 here, 12, and he shall be and when he hath taken away the multitude, his heart shall be lifted up, and he shall cast down many 10,000s, but he shall not be strengthened by it. So his heart shall be lifted up. And this is Philopator and Antiochus the Third, and that's 223 to 189 BC. And then you get into verse 13. For the king of the north, we know that's Egypt, Syria, shall return and shall set forth a multitude greater than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great army and with much riches. And like I said, each verse here could be 20 years, could be 50 years, could be 100 years. But we just have to figure out which battle they're talking about. So when you look up these battles, you'll find out what they're talking about. Army with great riches, and in those times, 14, there shall many stand up against the king of the south. That's Ptolemy the Fifth, and also the robbers of thy people. Now these are the Jews that went along with the Hellenizers. These are the Jews that all they wanted to do was live in peace and make money and do what they had to do. So the robbers of thy people are the Jews that didn't care about the temple or anything like that. They just wanted to go along to get along. Shall exalt themselves to establish the vision, but they shall fail. And the prophecy is fulfilled there. And then in 15, so the king of the north, this is Antiochus Magnus, Magnus. It might be him. So the king of the north in 15 shall come and cast up a mountain, take the most fenced cities, and the arms of the south shall not withstand, neither his chosen people, neither shall there be any strength to withstand. So that's could be Antiochus Epiphanes, but I got Magnus here, Magnus, with a question mark, so it could be him also. And 16, but he that cometh against him shall do according to his own will, and none shall stand before him, and he shall stand in the glorious land, and we know that's Judea, which by his hand shall be consumed. That's why I'm thinking it's Antiochus Epiphanes, because of what he did to the temple there. And then 17, he shall also set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do, and he shall give him the daughter of women, corrupting her, but she shall not stand on his side, neither before him. Now you get into all kinds of backstabbings and machinations here, man. So the upright ones would be the Hebrew people. And the daughter of woman is Cleopatra. And this would be Ptolemy Epiphanes. I guess that was his daughter. So Cleopatra, and she's going to betray She was actually an Egyptian, not an Egyptian. She's a Syrian, and she went down. And we usually connotate her with Egypt, like a queen of Egypt, but she's actually a Syrian. So they were all marrying and giving in marriage and all that stuff. So and she's going to betray her father. Actually, what she does, Cleopatra. So after this, shall he turn his face to the isles? The isles, I guess that would be Genesis. I got Genesis 10:5 in the margin here, whatever the isles are. Genesis 10:5. When I had all my notes on this, I was getting into it a little bit more with the history, but it's good to know when these things are. What happened, what Daniel's talking about. But these were the isles of the Gentiles, divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after the families and their nations, by these. And the sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim. So when you get to the table of nations in Genesis 10, you'll see there's talking about the isles of the Gentiles. And that's just about everything that isn't Jewish. So, and the isles, and shall take many. Where am I? Take many in 18. Shall take many, but a prince for his own behalf shall cause the reproach offered by him to cease. With his own reproach he shall cause it to turn upon him. So this is Antiochus the third daughter. I can't read it, but this would be in First Maccabees 8. This history here. First Maccabees 8. Do I have it in? I got First Maccabees 3. First Maccabees 8 and 6. It's a history book. It's all it is. How also Antiochus the Great, king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants and horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them. So that's what this is talking about. First Maccabees 8. You can put First Maccabees 8 on the next to verse 18 there in Daniel 11. So and then then 19. Then he shall turn his face toward the fort of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. 20. Then shall stand up his estate, a raiser of taxes. Raiser of taxes, and this would be Seleucus the Fourth. When it says, then shall stand up in his estate is Antiochus the Third, and the raiser of taxes that comes up is Seleucus the Fourth. In the glory of his kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed, neither in anger nor in battle. So I guess he just died, huh? I can only fit so much in the margins here. And in his estate shall stand up a vile person. So this would be the rise of Antiochus the Fourth, who we'll get into a little bit here, to whom they shall not give the honor of the king, but he shall come in peaceably and obtain the kingdom by flatteries. And we got all of those verses that have to do with by briberies. So this is Antiochus the Fourth. Flatteries, briberies, and flatteries. Okay, and with the arms of a flood, they shall be overflown from before him, and he shall be broken. Yea, also the prince of the covenant. So you talk when the prince of the covenant would be the high priest at that time, and that would be Onias, Onias, Onias the third. So he was high priest. First Maccabees 1. First Maccabees. I got to jump back and forth. First Maccabees 1:10. 1:10. Let me close this. First Maccabees 1:10. It says, and there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king. So his father would be Antiochus III, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. So whenever you read something like that, he reigned in the 100-some-odd year of the kingdom of the Greeks, you'll have to go back and find out when, what's his name? I turned my phone off. I was going to give you a calculator. But you would calculate, you would take 312, the year 312 BC, all right? This is how they calculate this. When the end of the Grecian monarchy, 312 BC. So you take 312 BC, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom. 137, 5, 7 and 3 is 10, right? All right. So this would be 175 BC. So it's 312 minus whatever this year is, 137, and you'll find out what year this is. So this verse, First Maccabees 1:10, the year is 175 BC. That's how you do it. Where was I? So you'll see that a lot in the 137th year of the Grecian. You just take 312 and minus whatever that is, and you'll find out the BC year by doing that. Don't let him finish. I'll turn his islands. It causes to come upon him. I was up to the rise of Antiochus the Fourth. And then the high priest is Onias the Third. At that time, you can look that up. So in verse 22 is the high priest is Onias, and then 23 he says, and after the league made with him, he shall work deceitfully, for he shall come up and shall be strong with the small people. And you can find this in Josephus. You can find this in Second Maccabees. We'll back this up, and that's why Daniel is prophetic about this. He's really not considered by some to be in the prophetic books. He's more in the written books, because you got what's called the Tanakh, the T-N-K. We call it Tanakh, T-A-N-A-K. It would be Torah, which is the law. When we say the law, the prophets, and the writings, it's T-N-K. The law is the Torah, that's T. N is Nabi, that would be the prophet. And K is Ketib, I think it is, Ketib, which means writing. So you got the law, the prophets, and the writings, the Tanakh. That's when you hear Tanakh, that's what that's talking about. So, and he's considered by some just to be in the K, in the writings. But this, if you go to Josephus and you look, I'm not going to go through it now, but if you have the book, all you got to do is go to the back of Josephus and look up Daniel, and you'll see all of the pages that he talks about. And it would be Antiquities of the Jews. I think it's book 12 or book 11 starts talking about Daniel. And also you can find this verse here, Daniel 11:23 would be in Second Maccabees 4. Second Maccabees 4. I guess the whole thing here. Now the Simon of whom he spake, having been a betrayer of the money and of his country, slandered Onias as if he had terrified Helidorus and been the worker of these evils. Thus was he bold to call him a traitor that had deserved well of the city, intended his own nation, and was zealous of the laws. And so this whole chapter here really talks about what this guy did. And Onius the Third, and all of the bribery and the money they bought the kingdom, they sold the kingdom, they did all kinds of crazy stuff here. And you got to read these books to find that out, you know. So 24, he shall enter. Let me put it up here. 3:24, and he shall enter peaceably upon the fattest places of the province, and he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his fathers' fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey, the spoil, and riches. Yea, he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds, even for a time. 24. And you got also here at this time, you got Ptolemy the Sixth, who's called Ptolemy Philometor. Philo is a friend, and mater is mother, so it's a friend of the mother. He was a mama's boy, eh? And this is this Ptolemy the Sixth is Cleopatra's son. All right, so he's over here in verse 24. Ptolemy Philometor, Cleopatra's son. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, but he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. All right. Yea, they shall feed of the portion of his meat. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. And both these kings, speaking of Ptolemy the Sixth and Antiochus the Fourth. Ptolemy the Sixth is Egypt, Antiochus the Fourth is Syria. And both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper, for yet the end shall be at a time appointed. 27. So that's predestination there. Then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. So he was helped by this evil high priest here, by the name of Menelaus, 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 and they supplanted a righteous high priest by the name of Jason. I mean, like I said, there was a whole lot of bribery. You want me to be the high priest? Here, I'll give you this so much money, and I'll be the high priest. And they threw this guy Jason out, who was pretty good, you know. So at the time appointed, he shall return, 29, and come toward the south, Egypt, but it shall not be as the former or as the latter. And this is also Antiochus. And you can read about this in First Maccabees, the first chapter. This is all covered in here. And so for the ships of Chittim, and that would be Cyprus, which is actually starting to be Rome at this point. So Cyprus, for the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved. And this is where they told him, no, you ain't going to go into. He was angry because he wanted to go into Egypt, and they wouldn't let him. So the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return, and have indignation against the holy covenant. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. So he was angry. First, there was news of his death. People were saying, Antiochus is dead, Antiochus is dead. So in Jerusalem, they're celebrating. Antiochus is over in Egypt doing his thing, or trying to do his thing, and Rome won't let him. And the word came back to Jerusalem that he's dead, so they're having a celebration that he's dead. And then he eventually gets word that they're celebrating his death, and he's not dead. So you can imagine how angry he is. So, and this is happening about 167 BC. And then it says, when he says he shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. And that's this so-called high priest, Menelaus, Menelaus, Menelaus. And then, and arms shall stand on his part, 31, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength and shall take away the daily sacrifice. So we're all familiar with this. The sacrifice and the oblation shall cease. We know that from Daniel 9, and it's also in the New Testament also. Pollutions, Daniel 12:11. It's the same thing. Daniel 12:11. No, let me see. 12:11. 12:11. And from that time, the daily sacrifice. Yes, it's 12:11. Let me see. 12:11. So this is giving you a time period here of this verse in Daniel 12. And from the time of the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate to shut up, there shall be 1,290 days. 1290. From this verse here. I forgot what verse I was on. Make it death of 31. Okay, 31. All right. So that's that there. And you count 1,290 days from there, and you'll figure something out. And then this is also in First Maccabees 1. I want to back this up, give you a little bit of history. First Maccabees 1, 11 to 15. 11 to 15. Like I said, this isn't canonical books. It's just a history book, and a lot of people believe this history. In those days, went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, "Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us." So these are Jews, and they want to be Hellenized. They don't care about the temple. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the peoples were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen, whereupon they built a place of exercise. They built a gymnasium at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. So that's talking about these people at this time. Then you don't make it desolate, and then I got a lot of stuff here in the margin here. First Maccabees 1, 20. First Maccabees 1, 21 to 23. In relation to this here, 21 to 23. And entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the golden altar. This is Antiochus IV, Antiochus Epiphanes, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof. And a lot of people didn't even care. And the table of showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, the veil, the crown, the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all of which he pulled off. He also took the silver and the gold and the precious vessels, and he took the hidden treasures which he found. And he did a lot more than that. He made them eat swine's flesh. He made soup and made them drink the soup of swines and all of that. So he was, he took away the sacrifice and the oblation. That's what he's talking about. So this is the man of sin that's talked about in the Bible, and this is the literal one. This is what he did. And the future spiritual one is coming in the future. And that's Second Maccabees 5. Second Maccabees 5. Second Maccabees 5. 24. I got just at the same time Antiochus prepared his second voyage into Egypt. Yeah, this is when he tried his second voyage, and when they said he was dead. This is 524. He sent also that detestable ringleader Apollonius with an army of 22,000, commanding him to slay all those that were in their best age and to sell the woman and the younger sort. And this is all the things he did. He was an evil man. And you'll find this in Matthew 24. We know the Matthew 24:15. I got here in the margin 24:15. 4:15. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso readeth, let him understand. And also it's in Mark. So, and this Apollonius is what I have here in the margin here. And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall be corrupt by flatteries, but the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Shall be strong and do exploits. And that's 32, verse 32. So who are these people? These are the Hasmoneans. These are the Maccabees. I had a whole list of them: the Judas Maccabee, Simon Maccabee, the brothers. They were called the Hammer. Judas Maccabee, I think, was called the Hammer, and him and his brothers, they stood against Antiochus Epiphanes. So when you say that the people that do know their God, so those are the Maccabees, shall be strong and do exploits, and they that understood among the people shall instruct many, yet they shall fall by the sword, by the flame, by captivity, by spoil, many days. And there's a whole bunch of stories about how they went into martyrdom, and they were told to, much like the whatchamacallits, in the 13th, 14th, 15th century when they had the Inquisitions. They had one back then too. He says, we want you to renounce God, we want you to drink the swine's flesh. And a lot of people said, no, we ain't doing it. And they were martyred back then too. So 33. And they that understand among the people shall instruct many. Okay, in 34. And now when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help, but many shall cleave to them with flatteries, and some of them of understanding shall fall, to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for an appointed time. It's predestination all over this thing. So the Maccabees, the Hasmoneans, and the king, 36, and the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. So you're talking about Second Thessalonians. 2 Thessalonians 2:4. And then Jesus spoke about these guys too. He says, who opposes and exalteth himself above all that is God or that is worshipped, so that he, as God, sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Who does that remind you of today? You know, the guy with the robe and the mitre hat on and the staff in his hand. Yeah, he thinks he's God. Determined to be neither shall be God, the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. And that's 2 Thessalonians 2:4. And then 38, and to the end of this. I mean, there's a whole lot of history I just skipped right over here, but you get the gist of it, you know. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and with precious stones and pleasant things. Um, the God of fortress, things desired. Thus shall he do in the most strongholds with the strange God, whom he shall acknowledge and increase with glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many, and shall divide the land for gain. So everything's got a price, and it's all idolatry. And at the time of the end, shall the king of the south, Ptolemy, push at him, and the king of the north, Seleucus, shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. 41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, which we know that that is, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries of the land of Egypt, shall not escape, but he shall have power over the treasures of gold and over the silver and over the precious things of Egypt. And the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. But tidings out of the east, Rome, but tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And you'll find these in the Maccabees in the books. And this is talking about Rome and First Maccabees 3. Let me just give you a quick history. First Maccabees 3. Nope, hold on a second. First Maccabees 3. First Maccabees 3, 10 to 37. A quick history lesson here. 3, 10 to 37. Then Apollonius gathered the Gentiles together in a great host out of Samaria to fight against Israel, which thing, when Judas perceived, he went forth to meet him, and so he smote him and slew him, and many also fell down slain, but the rest fled. Wherefore Judas took their spoils, and this is the Maccabees, and Apollonius' sword, and therewith he fought all his life long. First Maccabees 3, right? Yeah, okay. 10 to 37. Now when Seron, a prince of the army of Syria, heard say that Judas had gathered unto him a multitude and company of the faithful to go out with him to war, he said, I will get me a name and honor in the kingdom, for I will go fight with Judas and them that are with him who despise the king's commandment. So he made him ready to go up, and there went with him a mighty host of the ungodly to help him and to avenge the children of Israel. And when he came near to the going up of Beth Horon, Judas went forth to meet him with a small company, who, when they saw the host coming to meet them, said unto Judas, How shall we be able, being so few, to fight against so great a multitude and so strong, seeing we are ready to faint with fasting all this day? Unto whom Judas answered, It is no hard matter for many to be shut up in the hands of a few, and with the God of heaven it is all one, to deliver with a great multitude or a small company. So he's got faith, you know. It doesn't matter. He knows that God's fighting for him. For the victory of battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength cometh from heaven. They come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us and our wives and the children and to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our laws. And this is the law of God. This is the Ten Commandments here. Wherefore the Lord himself will overthrow them before our face. And as for you, be you not afraid of them. Now as soon as he had left off speaking, he leapt suddenly upon them, and so Seron and his host was overthrown before him. And this is going down to, he did this, and so 37. I don't want to read this whole thing here. Okay, until he came. and to bring his son Antiochus until he came again. Moreover, he delivered unto him the half of the forces and the elephants, and gave him charge of all things that he would have done, as also concerning them that dwelt in Judah and Jerusalem, to wit, that he should send an army against them to destroy and root out the strength of Israel and the remnant of Jerusalem, and to take away their memorial from that place, and that he should place strangers in all their quarters and divide their land by lot. So the king took the half of the forces that remained and departed from Antioch, his royal city, the 147th year, and you can figure that out, 312 minus 147, and you'll find out what year this is in the BC. Having passed over the river Euphrates, he went through the countries. But the Maccabees, they did great exploits, and they destroyed a lot, and they had peace from like, trying to think of the year now, right after they threw, in the month Chislew, which is December, and it was like, I believe it was the 15th or the 25th when they threw Antiochus Epiphanes out of the temple, and they called it Hanukkah. And Hanukkah and Christmas are diametrically opposed to one another, and today we celebrate them together. How stupid are we? I mean, the Maccabees, Judas Maccabee, threw Christmas out of the temple, and made Hanukkah. So you go figure that one. They threw the tree out, and they made God king again. So this is Rome, and then you got I can't go through all the Maccabees. There's so many verses in the Maccabees that back this up. You got is it 6? First Maccabees 6, 1 to 16. 10 to 37. Let me get back to this here. 11:36. And then you got Second Maccabees 9 and 5 that backs this up also. So, but it's 44. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. And right after that, you put 163 BC, and that's that. I mean, there's a lot of history right here, and this is between the testaments. This is the 400 silent years, or a lot of it anyway. And then you can look up some other history on Ptolemy and Antiochus to get some more history between the testaments. I thought I had some stuff here. The Maccabean revolt was a Jewish rebellion led by the Maccabees against the Seleucid Empire and against Hellenistic influence on Jewish life. The main phase of the revolt lasted from 167 to 160 BCE. Let me see, get this out of here. And ended with the Seleucids in control of Judea. So the Ptolemies were mainly in control from the time of that Alexander fell apart until now, until this 160 something. And then the Seleucids took over, and they ruled until Rome finally took over. But the conflict between the Maccabees, the Hellenized Jews, see, the Hellenized Jews were the ones that wanted to go along to get along, and the Seleucids continued until 134 BC, with the Maccabees eventually attaining independence. So there was peace from like 134 on down, and then until they sacked the city again. Seleucid king Antiochus IV Epiphanes launched a massive campaign of repression against the Jewish religion in 168 BC, and we just read about that. The reason he did so is not entirely clear, but it seems to have been related to the king mistaking an internal conflict among the Jewish priesthood as a full-scale rebellion. There's a lot of different reasons, but that's one of them. Jewish practices were banned. Jerusalem was placed under direct Seleucid control, and the Second Temple in Jerusalem was made the site of a syncretic pagan Jewish cult. So it was everything but righteous. The repression triggered exactly the revolt that Antiochus IV had feared, with a group of Jewish fighters led by Judas Maccabeus and his family rebelling in 167 BC and seeking independence. The rebels as a whole would come to be known as the Maccabees, and their actions would be chronicled later in the books of Maccabees and Maccabees, First and Second Maccabees. So it was more like a guerrilla movement, yeah. Let me see here. Here it is. It's about the subsequent cleansing of the temple and rededication of the altar on 25 Kislev. So there you go. That's Christmas. Is the source of the festival Hanukkah. Oops. All right, I just lost that page, so forget about it. Anyway, you get a lot of history from these guys. The intertestamental period or the deuterocanonical period is the period of time between the events of the proto-canonical books of the New Testament. Traditionally, it is considered to cover roughly 400 years, spanning the ministry of Malachi in 420 BC to the appearance of John the Baptist in the early 1st century AD. It is roughly contiguous with the Second Temple period from 516 BC, so that's when the temple was finished in 516, up until 70 AD, when it was destroyed again, and encompassed the age of Hellenistic Judaism, which is an oxymoron. It is known by some members of the Protestant community as the 400 silent years, because it was a span where no new prophets were raised and God revealed nothing new to the Jewish people. So that's why it's the silent years, but it wasn't so silent as we have seen. A lot of stuff went on, So what happened between the Old and the New Testament? The short answer, the period of silence between the Old and New Testament is nothing new. It actually follows a pattern God had repeated throughout the Old Testament. First, God generally designed or allowed a desperate situation to arise. He always called upon the faithful servant to stand in the gap, okay? The efforts of man had to be frustrated before divine intervention ensued. So he's in charge. God's doing it all. You see that in Daniel. He talks about the time appointed. The intertestamental period. Why was God silent? Because he wanted to be. He was now preparing to speak his greatest and most powerful word to mankind, Jesus. So all of this stuff is leading up to Jesus. Everything leads up to Jesus. The whole Old Testament leads up to Jesus, and the conflicts and the strife and everything that happened between the testaments also made Jesus, possible. A pause, a long and distinct pause, would add emphasis to that monumental revelation. It talks about the Persian era from 397 to 336. Talks about the Greek era from 336 to 323, and they use 312 as the breaking point there. So, and the Egyptian era is 323 to 198 BC. All right, and the Syrian era picked up after that from 198 to 166, and this is the Maccabean era from 165 to 63 BC. They did pretty good there for themselves. And then the Roman era, of course, 63 to 4 BC and beyond, so it's now the Roman Catholic era. 5 notable groups: the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the Herodians, the Zealots, the Essenes. All of these people came about, and the stage was set. Mankind's futile attempts to deal with the shifting tide of political power and religious belief had produced very little. Israel was in a kind of spiritual bondage that was even worse than her political bondage. The rise of various parties and movements discussed above was evidence of a sincere search for some final solution to her problem. All seemed to have failed. The stage of history was dark. The situation was indeed desperate. Amid this setting, God broke 400 years of silence with the announcement of the coming of Christ, the faithful servant of the Lord, and the intertestamental period came to an end. So there's a brief, albeit very brief, synopsis of the 400 years. Oh, there was that battle. There was another battle there. It was very, I think it's Ipsus, IP Ipsus. Yeah, this was a big battle. And it was at 301 BC. So that caused a lot of important things to happen, this battle. Ipsus was the high point of the struggle among Alexander the Great's successes to create an international Hellenistic empire, which Antiochus failed to do. So that started the rift between the Seleucians and the Ptolemies, and that went on for hundreds of years. You can get lost doing all this here today, but I don't know what else I got here. I got nothing else, so we're going to say thank God for everything. He's doing it all. We're nothing. All we do is sit here and read books and try to figure out what he wants for us. And little by little, we understand. So a little more gray matter got etched today with this, and some things, when we start reading Daniel now, we might have a little, albeit, rushed through it today, but if you took some kind of notes, you might be able to get a better understanding. And if you go, well, let's just finish the prayer, and we thank you, God. We thank you for everything. We do everything in Jesus' name, amen. So that's that. And there's other history books, that we can use to get this, to talk about all the battles, you talk about all the names. Just look up Ptolemy, look up Antiochus, and those two phrases will get you all you need to know, really, about what happened between the Testaments. And there was something else here. I put them in my email. Let me see if I can find this email here. And maybe I can send it to you. Old mail. Is it old mail? Yeah, I got this here in Ptolemy. So I got a history on the Ptolemies here. And it gives you all their names and when they reigned, and I can send that off to you if you want. And then you got the other guys, Antiochus here. And you got all of these Antiochuses here, and it gives you the dates and the names and everything when they do it, and you just match them up. And it gives you a little history. This guy killed that guy. This guy sent his sister to marry this guy, and this one, and this guy committed suicide. This one was poisoned, and all of that stuff is here. So I'll send this off to you guys too. I think I'm still recording, ain't I? Yeah, let's stop recording. Thank you, God.